Hello, everybody. Hello out there. Welcome to another LinkedIn learning session brought to you by Stories Inc. My name is Bernadette Van Giesen. I am your host today, and we have a really exciting topic. We're going to be talking about creating an agile EVP, how to communicate culture during times of organizational change. And to do this, I have two wonderful guests with me, my colleague, Christy Coluccio. Christy is an account manager here at Stories Inc. And then our special guest today, Crystal Diaz Conroy. Crystal is Senior Manager Global Talent Brand at GoTo. So thank you both for joining us today. Hello, how are we doing?
Good. Thanks, Bernadette. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Yes. So before we kind of jump into our topic, Crystal, especially I would love if you maybe take 30 seconds, introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you? What's your background? What do you do at GoTo? And what we're going to be talking about today. We can jump into it.
So I'm Crystal. I'm based out of San Diego, California. I actually just moved back from Hawaii, really embracing that flexible lifestyle at GoTo. I've worked in communications in one form or another for almost 10 years now. I've done digital marketing, social media, employee communications, and all of that and hybrid roles have kind of led me here. And I really have a lot of fun with what I do because really I just get to talk to other people, and I get to talk to them about things that they want to talk about, which is themselves, their lives, their passions, their growth, their career. And honestly, I enjoy it a lot. As for GoTo, in February of 2022, we went through a rebrand. So we were formally Log Me In, and we announced our rebrand as GoTo. Following a year-long internal company transformation, and it's really exciting to go through a rebrand as a brand person, and it still is because we're obviously still building that brand. So that would be the organizational change that we kind of undertook, and how did we communicate culture during that time as we rebranded. So another point I'd love to just make is that I'm very passionate and involved in inclusive messaging initiatives at GoTo and inclusion initiatives from ERGs. I'm an ERG leader, and I think it's really important for employer brand professionals to be involved in those initiatives in some way or another, just so that you understand, because it's obviously an important topic and it flows into all of your messaging and everything that you do.
That's a wonderful introduction. Thanks, Crystal. And before we kind of jump into the topic, Christy, you want to take 30 seconds to kind of introduce yourself? And I know from what Crystal said there, you guys have a few things in common, including a love for uncovering employee stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you introduced me. I'm an account manager here based in the Philadelphia area. But one of the things that I related to as going through this process with Crystal and with Log Me In and then Go To is that, as a former recruiter, I know that sometimes that you want to make sure that the message is, the right message that you're getting out to candidates, and you want to reassure them that everything is still going the way it should be during the recruiting process and getting that messaging across. And I really thought that, Crystal and working with your team, we took our time to make sure that the messaging was communicated the right way, even in the midst of some uncertainty, but we were getting the right message across as things were changing pretty regularly during our interaction together.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great segue there, Christy. So, Crystal, I know in this specific instance it was a corporate rebrand, but I think there's a lot of things out in the world where organizations find themselves in these times of uncertainty, whether it's a merger and acquisition, or it's a rebrand, or just kind of all the uncertainty that's out in the world right now. So can you kind of talk us through why did GoTo Log Me In decide to create content during this time? Why was it important to invest in culture content during this kind of time of uncertainty?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember the context too of when we did this. Like, the demand for talent was incredibly high at this time, and the supply was very limited. This wasn't long before, the Great Resignation, which now seems like so long ago, but we were kind of embarking on this right around that time. And employees as well were also looking for insight and engagement. So I think it was just as much of a retention tool as an attraction tool. I think is what ultimately happened. This project sort of fell in my lap as well because my predecessor had begun it before I even started at GoTo, which was formally logged me in. So it was on me to kind of see it through. And I think that fresh perspective helped. And I knew that the rebrand was coming, obviously. So I knew that we had to be flexible. I knew that I was going to come in and redevelop the EVP. So I also knew that was coming into play. Um, and one thing is that employee stories don't expire. All right. So even if somebody leaves or something else happens, their story still matters and it still happened and they still experience that growth or progression or whatever it is that we're discussing with them. And I knew that the EVP was going to be built around what the culture was. It was going to be aspirational, but it was still going to be true to who we were. So no matter what we created, I knew that it was going to be relevant, it was going to be evergreen, and that we could reuse it, repurpose it. And it was really easy to capture the spirit of being a go-getter before we even called ourselves go-getters, obviously. Even before we knew what that would be, we had already had these stories. As we recorded them, we also kind of figured that out. So that was interesting. I think it helped.
Well, and I think also, in addition to everything that you said there, it's like during this time, I think people want to be hearing from the organization too. So it's like
Mhm.
they don't know quite what's going on. They know things are changing. They're excited. They're a little nervous, and so it's like hearing this reinforcement of the culture. And then in addition to, I know we're also doing a lot of hiring too. So it's like candidates also want to hear what's going on. They want to hear what the future is going to look like. They want to hear what they're going to be walking into tomorrow, not just what the company is going to look like, 6, 9, 12 months from now. So it's like there is still, you need that content even when you aren't quite sure what tomorrow is going to look like.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because it's still authentic. It's still true, right? Like I
Mhm.
said, even if someone leaves or they still had that experience and it's still relevant to whoever wants to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but the importance of stories there. It's like, no, it's like, so it's like something happened.
Mhm.
And it's like, you don't need to have the tagline or the EVP, but it's like if something happened and it's rooted in an experience,
Mhm.
it is still true.
Yeah.
Awesome. So at this point, so good kind of setup there. So let's talk about kind of what actually went on with creating this content. So this
Mhm.
is where Stories Inc. came in. So Stories Inc. and Christy led the charge here, was able to partner with Crystal and her team to make this project happen. So I know we interviewed 6 GoTo employees from around the world. What was something, can you kind of speak through the storyteller selection process? So I know that's a question we get a lot
Mm.
is, how do
Mhm.
you pick the people? How do you know, that these are the right people to tell our stories? Can you kind of tell us your experience there?
Yeah, luckily, I think go-getters have a really strong ambassador mindset. So I won't say they made it very easy for me, but I am going to say that because it's true. So that it wasn't difficult to find people, but I would say that I have had difficulties in my previous experiences. And the way to kind of assuage that is to just talk to people. And it does take a lot of time and effort up front from you, but just sit down, have a one-on-one with somebody, maybe the ERG leaders, right? And I know, as an ERG leader, I know that we get tapped very frequently, because we're involved in community initiatives, but we are involved for a reason. So I would utilize that network as much as you can. If you have any type of internal engagement like Slack, the people who were posting a lot in Slack, in our Go Getters channel or sharing, their pictures from their self care day, these people will kind of make themselves known if you can look in the right place. So I would start there and start with the people that are already active ambassadors of the brand in one way or another, whether it's internal or external, and then just approach them with that. So that's kind of what I did. And then I also wanted to I was new to the organization, so I was asking a lot of questions, especially of the TA partners, because they are dealing with hiring managers all the time. They're dealing with candidates a lot. They usually know somebody somewhere that's going to be able to give you some content. And then obviously it was really important to have diversity in terms of geo, in terms of role, in terms of experience. So again, there was a lot of kind of work up front to, okay, we really want people to convey what it's like in sales. We really want engineering folks. We really want somebody, we need at least one person from India, right? Because we obviously have a presence there. So take all of that into consideration. It's just like any other persona, work is that you're trying to find this one persona, and just do the heavy lifting up front, and then just talk to people. I think that having those one-on-one not interviews, but exploration calls, like it's not like I said, "Hey, do you want to be a part of this video?" in an email. I reached out to them. I said, "Hey, I'm new to the organization. We're embarking on, trying to tell employee stories. Would you be interested in having a chat with me?" And then I would just discover things about them. I would make it fun and I would make it engaging and I would make them also want to participate, I think. Because again, people do love to talk about themselves, so you can tap into that a little bit. And if they have an interesting story, and you even ask some of those questions up front, I think they'll get a little bit excited to tell that, and almost just jump at the opportunity if they are that type of person. And if they're not, you can always go back to the first approach and just find other people and start with a bigger pool. So that's kind of what I did and what I have done in my past.
I think that's really amazing advice, and I don't think it's something that you should just, like, pick someone in a couple hours, and I think taking the time to really thoughtfully look for people and think about what's the end product I'm looking for. In this case, it was, people who really represent the culture. It was people who represent key hiring areas that you're looking to attract, people that represent geographic areas that you're looking to attract in. And so it's, like, thinking that through, and then I love the idea of doing kind of those intro calls too, because worst case scenario, if that person isn't necessarily the right fit for this project, they're still
Mhm.
a member of your organization who you want to connect with, and you're going to be needing to share employee stories and represent your
Yep.
workforce over time. So it's not like it's a connection, not worth having still. So I think there's no harm that can come from having those kind of conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And make sure that they know that you will do the heavy lifting. That's something I always iterate when we're creating content, whether it's video, written, any type of employee content. I make sure that they understand that all they need to do is spend half an hour with me and I will do the rest, or my team will do the rest, and really kind of guide them through that and be as helpful as possible, because they are offering their story, and that can be personal to them sometimes, or they might be afraid of, being out there externally, and that's okay. And you can help, I think, mitigate that by letting them know, hey, your story is fantastic, we just want to share it, and we're going to do all the heavy lifting for you. I think that helps.
Mhm. Well, you took the words out of our mouth, Crystal, because here at Stories Inc., we like to say we do all the heavy lifting for our clients. In this case, it was you. The one thing we do really ask people is to identify the storytellers, which
Mhm.
Crystal just gave a beautiful explanation there. But Christy would love to you're the account manager and content strategist on this. So, from there, I know we prep everyone, we get everyone scheduled, we uncover the stories. Can you kind of talk through what that side of the project looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say again, thank you, Crystal, for making our job even easier by having these pre-conversations and really sharing some of what you've learned about the storytellers that we were going into interview, because that helps us, even though we are having a facilitated conversation with questions that we're going to ask of each person. By having that information from you, it made it even easier for us to go into those conversations to talk to the individual storytellers about what really excited them, if it was ERG or professional development, or whatever they have had the most meaningful experience at GoTo. We were able to get to the story a little bit faster because we had some of that prep work from you. But we do go into all these interviews with the intention of preparing everyone so that they know what to expect, that they feel comfortable, and like Crystal said, like all they have to do is show up and talk, and have a meaningful conversation for 30 minutes, and then that's it. We want them to feel comfortable with the experience, not just be their authentic selves, and I think that we were able to do that. And it really, I would say, a lot of the success of the project can come from just the initial framing that you did, Crystal, to help us along that way.
One question I would have, and especially kind of going back to the topic of this of creating content through times of change.
Mhm.
In Crystal and Chris, I know this was kind of like a push and pull, not push and pull, but like a collaborative effort here. How much like knowledge of the topics, culture topics going in did you have? Like, do you go in knowing, these are probably going to be like 3 or 4 of our eventual pillars. Let's work here, or are we going in just like we're looking to uncover the culture right now, and then we'll, continue to flesh that out later. Can you kind of like go through the thought process of that, Crystal, a little bit?
Yeah. Since I wasn't at the company when we decided to embark on it, I can't speak to what the original intent was, but when I started and when I find out that that we had this partnership, my objective was pretty simple: is make culture content available. And I think a lot of the times, as employer brand folks, we tend to get lost in the sauce a little bit, and we think a little too deeply on strategy and not enough on impact, because we can strategize all day and we can come up with all these fantastic ideas. But sometimes the strategy can be really simple, is make content available. And when I started, that was my first objective, just to make some noise. And not to say that we didn't have that before, but knowing that we were going through a rebrand and that we had to reframe not only the corporate brand, but now the employer brand, just getting something out there was my main objectives. As simple as that seems, it can be really effective, especially if you're a team of one. Again, you could spend all your time strategizing, but think about some impactful content. You could just get out there, and you don't have to have your EVP ready. You don't have to have, this whole strategic plan. If you go in there saying, I know what I want, and that is to make content available to the people who are searching for it. And it can be as simple as that, and that can be really effective. So that was kind of the how I went about the objective. Again, being very fresh and new to GoTo, and to honestly any sort of project that was similar to this, especially for video. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of that was the main objective from my perspective.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
one
then,
thing to keep in mind also, again, when we started this project, the rebranding hadn't even happened. And so some of the times people were used to speaking in terms of the old ERG name, or,
Right.
speaking about log me in, or go to. And so we tried to educate them along the way, like, or can you rephrase this, or can we speak
Hmm.
about it more generally? Because some things we're still to be determined. And so the names of ERG groups, for example. So I think we went in there a little bit flexible with
Hmm.
some of those things as well.
Hmm.
and I think that flexibility, and that's why, I mean, we talked about this a little bit at the top of the conversation, but the stories are so powerful there because you can always update a lower third with the
Yeah.
correct name of the ERG. You can always update the intro graphics and the closing graphics and the call to action. And when you're sharing it on social, the copy will always be,
Hmm.
show the new strategy that you want to evolve, but the story is still there. And so it's like you can always update those details as long as the story is strong. Um, so Crystal, I know another thing that was really important to this project was being able to communicate things quickly in short amount of time is something
Hmm.
that was important to you. Would you mind touching on that?
Yeah. I guess obviously you can only say so much in a few minutes. But I think there's this Mark Twain quote that I really like, and I think it's something to the effect of, "I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one instead," because brevity is really hard to achieve, and it is difficult to get really concise messaging that's short, that's sweet. But I think we were able to do that, especially, we had the longer form available to people, but we also wanted to have that shorter form available to people, even though it takes some time to try to thread, a story in 45 seconds. I do think we were able to do that with, one of the stories, so that we had that quick snippet for people to enjoy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna share that example here in a second, but, so just to kind of, for everyone out there, the scope of this project is we created 3 culture theme videos, so that were long form compilation, multiple storytellers present in that video talking about various culture themes, things like belonging and general culture and professional growth, and then there were 2 team feature overview videos, also compilation, about sales and engineering, which were very key hiring areas. And then we created a couple of these 30-second ads, cut downs of those videos to be able to very quickly deliver a message and then catch that interest and then drive them to the longer form video. So it just is kind of like a quick overview. So we're going to
Mhm.
share one of those short videos here.
One thing that GoTo believes in is being real, and it's one of our core values. And I can be Kenneth every single day. I can be funny, I can be serious, but I can always count on being me, being authentic, being myself, without any judgment. And everyone has continued to be themselves, and it really makes you feel comfortable. We all are working towards one mission: is being number one, being the greatest, and it's the best feeling in the world to just be a part of the organization.
Okay. So that one was driving for one of the longer form culture videos. And I do like that one because I think it speaks a lot to the inclusion and belonging. And then at the end, he does kind of speak to wanting to be number one and it being in, a company that is looking to be successful and looking to really stand out in the industry, which I feel like getting that kind of like hint at the end of that there is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. So kind of to round out talking about this project here,
Mhm.
can you speak to it all? Just, content's done, it's great. You have this content library to work with. What did your team do from there to distribute it and
Mhm.
just kind of any impact you were able to see?
Yeah, I think I would say that if I could have done this again, I think this is the part where I probably could have used that more targeted approach. Now, I think there's been a lot of lessons learned from getting this, right? So we wanted to get it out. We were relying a lot on just the organic traffic that we would get and answering that question that somebody would have, which is, can I see myself here? So, candidates are doing that research. They're encountering this video in that search, and we made that available to them, obviously by creating a playlist on YouTube, on our corporate YouTube that they could find. We also shared it on social, and we kind of went that kind of traditional route. Um, Again, if I could do it again, I think I probably would have embedded them into and we do that now for other initiatives and other things, embed it into the outreach actually that our TA partners or discovery partners have in talent acquisition. That those cold emails, or even to the CRM efforts, or really targeted messages that can give a candidate an insider view or insider look, is what I would recommend to anyone. Or also, if I could do it again, that's what I would do. Definitely, because I think it's much more, again, targeted, and probably has a lot more impact because you're getting it in the hands of the people who are actually going to learn something from it. Obviously, the awareness helps. So, of course, use your traditional, partner with your social team, get them to share the content. Especially with the rebrand, it was really easy to say, "Oh, we've got this great content, we should share it." So, really utilize anything you have under your sleeve. But I would say the targeted approach is something that if I could do it again, I absolutely would, because again, you're portraying what already exists and people want to know about it, especially if they're already in your process, or at the very least have applied to a job, or there's all kinds of different methods you can go. But that would be my suggestion, and kind
Mhm.
of lesson learned too.
Yeah, and I think that's a great lesson that long form content or the short form content that we created can really be used in so many places. So it can be used at that top of funnel, organic brand awareness, but then also can be
Mhm.
used strategically further down the funnel too.
Mhm.
Um, awesome. Okay. So separate from creating the culture content, would love to just kind of like open the conversation. I know you developed an EVP. Congratulations, you and your team.
Thanks.
It's like such a big thing, and it's such an exciting thing to be able to launch. Can you just kind of talk through the process? Any lessons learned, like you just shared there, or just any tips that you would give for people out there?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is one that I actually really love talking about because I feel that there are a lot of lately conversations around an EVP. There's a lot of EVP. I don't want to say haters, but people who say, maybe you don't need one. If you could just put content out there. To my previous point about moving fast and getting things done. But the reason that I'm firmly on the EVP matters camp, I think, is because if you don't have that key message and you can't consistently bottle that in a different way, different mediums, it has to be flexible. You're going to suffer from inconsistency, and we all know that consistency is what builds a brand. Is having a message and kind of making sure that everybody understands what it is. Just like when you turn on your TV and you hear that Netflix sound and you're settling in for that experience, whatever it is that you feel about that experience, you know what you're going to get. And that's like, I just don't see why an EVP can't do that. And so it really depends on how you amplify it, how you kind of spread that message across the organization internally, but also how flexible you are with it. So our EVP, kind of got it in my background here: work boldly, go brilliantly. And we arrived at that, through a series of roundtables and a lot of iterations, and it was a very intensive process, but it was a lot of fun. And I think really what I'd like to say here is that the first part of that represents the invitation, the challenge, and how GoTo pushes progress forward. And then the second encompasses, your career path, the journey, the greatness that awaits. So again, it's one tagline, but it represents all these things. And I think as long as you're open to whatever, that interpretation that you've made that is key. And you can go in all different directions. We can, there's bold opportunities, there's brilliant careers. Like there's just so many ways that we can take it, and that resonates around the world. So that's what we're kind of embarking on now that we have it. I would say that we took a lot of time to make deliverables for people. So we've got talking points that revolve around our EVP now. We give candidates materials that talk to the culture. And you might not see these words on a web page. You might not see what, the anthem that we created on a web page. But the point is that when somebody interacts with us, they are going to get that message in one way or another. And that's what an EVP, I think, is meant to do. That it's not limiting. So my first advice, absolutely, you need one. If at the very least for the discovery of it, so roundtables, interviews, getting to know people, getting to know the employee experience. And when you give them something tangible and you're saying, we're going to create something out of this, that gives them ownership, of course, which feels kind of obvious, but I think that can get lost sometimes. So when you have something that you're delivering, or that you're saying, hey, you're going to help create this, you're going to get a lot more, I think, active participation, and you're going to learn probably a lot more, and you'll get an honest opinion on, does this resonate? Is this even true? And then my second really, really important thing is, if you embark on this journey, bring the marketing and brand team along with you. I cannot stress that enough. Luckily, our marketing and brand creative team is incredible partners, but they can really help push things forward for you, because ultimately they are the stewards of the brand. And without them, I know that a lot of, like, in my past, I've encountered maybe red tape for marketing, or not necessarily at GoTo, but we've all encountered that, right? So if you bring them on from the very beginning, you're gonna get a lot more done, I think, and they will also feel ownership over that, because if you can convey, I want to carve out a piece of our brand for the employee experience, and I want that to resonate globally. That's good for everybody. More clicks, more traffic, more awareness for our brand is always going to be a good thing. But the employee experience is different, and it is different than what you're telling customers, or you're talking about products. It's all related and all lives under the same world, but they are different, and it's for a different audience. So that would be also something that I would really, really have people do, is bring your marketing team or your creative team into the process early on. It's really crucial for them to be involved, in order to make it successful.
Awesome. Really great tips. And I love the EVP that you and your team came up with, because I mean, even though these videos were created months before it launched, to be able to see, the thread between the two. And it's like, it does really reflect the culture and reflect the stories too.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So I think that's all I have. Any parting words, closing thoughts, anything?
Yeah, no, I think it was a great experience, and I think, again, a lot of the times we do get a little lost in the strategy, and you should work on getting content out. You should work on building relationships with those employee ambassadors. And I know a lot of talent brand people, probably struggle with finding participants, or finding, people to be willing to share their story. But if you use that kind of human approach, and you also make them feel really good about what it is that they're contributing, you're going to get really far, and they will also appreciate it as well, building their personal brand.
It's a great way to close it out. Thank you so much for being here, Crystal and Christy. This has been a really wonderful conversation. Please connect with Crystal, connect with us, connect with Stories Inc. If you like sessions like this, we try to host them every other Thursday, although we are actually hosting one next Thursday, 2 weeks in a row. So join us. We have another really great conversation with the American College of Cardiology. We're talking about storytelling for associations. So please join us next week. And Crystal, thank you so much again.
Thanks,
Good luck.
everybody.
We'll talk to you
Thanks.
later. Bye.
Bye.